going to give him 2 minutes to come up here and introduce himself and why he wants to continue to serve us.
Thank you, everybody. That's right. So I am Sheriff Brian Burnett. I'm going to read something because it's really important. I think I want to touch on some really good points. So you can make an informed decision based on real circumstances, not half-truths or just talking points. A lot of people ask why to re-elect Brian Burnett for sheriff. It's not about me. It's about a team. It's about executing. It's about winning strategy that's actually already in play. I can go on to talk about how I've been called to lead as the elected sheriff, 3 terms, current president of the Washington State Sheriff's Association, past president of the Washington Association of Sheriffs and Police Chiefs, and the incoming 2023 Washington State liaison for the Western State Sheriff's Association, which is the sheriffs of 17 states west of the Mississippi. Being a trusted leader is a big responsibility, and it provides certain advantages. With our local training hub, we're saving tax dollars and taking advantage of regionalized training right here in Wenatchee. And I know who to call to get things done. And when I call, they answer the phone. We're not waiting for the storm to hit. We're actually taking a dive on dangerous drugs, behavioral health, and legislative laws, because criminals don't need rights more than our law enforcement. My team and I are out front and working tirelessly for you. But the big piece of this is we built relationships. We built relationships with the commissioners, representatives, senators, and many other people. I've been proactive, and I'm going to remain vigilant in upholding and defending our constitutional rights. Let's talk about character as a husband, as a father, as a grandfather, why you really should vote for me. No one's more vested in the future of Chelan County. I have 6 kids, 7 grandchildren, and 5 generations right here in Chelan County. That's not a career, this is a calling. Listen, the community trusts in myself and my leadership. So, talk to the people that know me and know my team. Now's not the time. It's not the time to let your foot off the gas. Now's not the time to get soft, and it's certainly not the time to let the minority speak for the majority. So I'm going to continue to fight to protect our quality of life, and I'm going to continue to fight to protect your constitutional rights. Thank you.
Good evening, Mike Morrison, 42, married, known my wife since I've been 19. She's blessed me with 3 children, and I am a 16-plus year law enforcement veteran. So I come from a family of law enforcement. My mom was one of the first officers here in Washington State. Fought through a lot of adversity to rise to the rank of lieutenant. I'm very proud of her service. She retired here in 2020. My father is currently a K-9 officer. He'll retire here next year. My cousin's a sergeant. My uncle's retired Thurston County Sheriff. And my sister and my brother-in-law, that went quick. Sister and brother-in-law just retired from the United States Marine Corps. So I come from a family that's dedicated their lives to serving community and country, and continued that tradition. So after I graduated Spokane Community College with a degree in Administration of Justice and Central Washington University with a degree in Law and Justice, I followed the family path and jumped in. So what have I been doing the last 16 plus years? I've been on the SWAT team. I served up in Okanagan County. I've been a field training officer. I've been an EVOC instructor, that's emergency vehicle operations. I've run the program here. I've run the regional program. I've instructed at CJTC for the Basic Academy, the Advanced Academy, and also helped write curriculum for CJTC's EVOC program in addition to assisting other agencies statewide. In addition to that, I've been a school resource officer from 2016 to 2020, certified by the National Association of School Resource Officers. I'm a union president for the Chelan County Deputy Sheriff's Association. I've been associated with union representation for 10 out of my 16 years. I've been to arbitration, I've been in front of PERC, presented cases, and been very successful, which some of you have read about. So I'm going to continue to represent my community, represent my family, and carry on the family tradition of doing law enforcement at the highest level I know possible. I work hard, I've always worked hard, and nothing's going to change as I continue on. I'm fresh and I'm ready to go. Thank you.
Thank you both. You keep the mic, Mike. Okay. We'll go ahead and ask you, what do you view the role of sheriff to be?
The role of sheriff is simple. It's the highest law enforcement entity within Chelan County. We are responsible for the law enforcement services to Chelan County. The job is pretty simple. Protect, serve. I've seen my family do it. I've seen me do it through my career. I've seen my college roommates, one over at Mount Vernon PD, one at Spokane PD. Job's pretty consistent across the state. See crime, deal with it, make sure citizens feel comfortable within Chelan County, and ensure that we have the resources and the personnel that are going to be able to take on the problems that are coming. I've been on the road for 16 years. I've seen it. I've seen law changes. It's nothing new. Arizona versus Gant, we had Miranda. Case laws come all the time. We have different changes in the laws. You have to adapt. You have to overcome. That's why they hired us. We're resourceful, and we can overcome any challenge that Washington State wants to present to us because we're dedicated, we're focused, and I'm going to make sure to continue to carry that tradition on. So we will overcome this. It's not impossible. We're still doing law enforcement now. We can still pursue. You just have to be a little bit more intelligent of how you're getting into it, think, and then we can go out and do law enforcement. So thank you.
Same question, I'm assuming.
Yes, sir.
Right. Multifaceted. Number one, obviously, logistically, you got to run the sheriff's office. You have to manage the staff, and you have a budget this year, which we just implemented and put in to the county commissioners for $14.7 million for about 84 employees as FTEs. There's policy, there's regulations, there's liability, and different things that we have to manage. But really deep down inside, the sheriff is responsible for managing those teams and putting those teams in place. The undersheriff and my command staff, the 5 appointed positions, actually run the sheriff's office, and I oversee that. But my biggest part that I do as sheriff, as the top law enforcement executive in Chelan County, is I build relationships and manage those relationships. And without those relationships, you can't bring in regional training, you can't acquire the funding, and you can't get the trust from the county commissioners and the other public officials that we have to work closely with and all the different entities to manage those programs and actually go, farther out into the future to do the programs that we're going to need to do. So really important to build those relationships.
Thank you. Do you consider yourself to have good morals and integrity? Why or why not? I'm serious.
Well, absolutely. When my wife is sitting right back there, we've been married for 35 years. We have 7 kids and number 7 child on the way. It's everything that I learned growing up in an orchard in Leavenworth, going to school, learning how good, solid work ethics. I don't do everything perfect all the time. I don't make the best decisions or the right decisions all the time. But my heart and my intent is always purposeful to do that. And when I don't, we go back and we admit those wrongs, and we go back and try to do what is right to manage those along the way. I take my faith very seriously, and that is the guidance, we call my compass to my true north. And everything about that says, along the way, this is what you look, and this is the example from the Beatitudes to everything. And I think my history from pre-law enforcement and my 10 years working in the timber industry to my law enforcement career since 1998 working for the Chelan County Sheriff's Office represents that. From Deputy of the Year to Field Training Officer, Patrol Corporal, Patrol Sergeant, City of Chelan Sergeant, School Resource Officers, and the recognition that I have through my peers as the Washington State Sheriff's Association President and the past President for the Washington State Sheriff's Association, police chiefs and sheriffs. I mean, those things that people don't recognize that unless they know who you are, and they're going to put you into those positions to represent them.
Yes, I see integrity as your number 1 priority. Even in the academy, they preach it to you from day 1. Keep your eye in check. You have to be accountable for who you are, what you do. The community depends on you. You are pillars, and whether you want to be or not, you are a big billboard because you are the best of what the community has to offer. And if you fall, take ownership of it. I've done that throughout my career. I can also say I'm not a perfect individual, but I've tried my best to learn from my mistakes, continue to grow, never stay comfortable with where I'm at. I want to push myself. I want to challenge myself. I've watched this coming up in the background that I've had. My parents led by example. I remember one time getting my car towed in high school, and my mom came and met me down at the tow yard, and they said, "Hey, we know you, you're Lieutenant Mize. We can just waive the fee." My mom said, "Absolutely not. He was in the wrong. He's going to pay the fee." It was just instilled at an early age. Do the right thing for the right reasons. If you fail, get back up, take accountability, learn from it, move on. The community's counting on us, and that's going to continue with me.
Thank you both. Mr. Morrison, would you consider yourself to be, if elected, a constitutional sheriff? Why or why not?
Yes, I'm a constitutional sheriff because we took an oath. Every single officer in Washington State takes an oath, swears to uphold the Constitution of the state of Washington and the United States. You can't deviate from it. You put your hand up, you swore to it, uphold the oath. Constitutional rights are important. I have my rights that I want to be respected, and I'm sure every single person within Chelan County wants to ensure that their rights are also protected. So yes, I'm a constitutional sheriff. We'll always honor the Constitution. And as my family's always done, if we have to, we'll fight to the bitter end to ensure those rights are restored.
Thank you. Please repeat.
Oh, absolutely, and I think the group here knows me well, and I've represented that as the last 12 years as sheriff. And I know that we have some more challenges coming our way that I believe that the state and the federal governments are going to try to push down our area, regardless, depending on who's in authority and in those leadership positions. And I'm going to echo what Mr. Morrison said, that the oath that we take is number one priority, and we have to follow that. We have to always fall back to remember that's our compass that's leading us north, and we can never forget that. I think the track record from COVID is one of the big things. Truly, what this group is asking is brought to the forefront is what authority does the state or the federal government have to say, you go do this or you go do that, to come and infringe upon your life? And I think the Constitution, which I carry with me regularly, okay, because I can't quote it all, but I can tell you that it's important, and it's what our founding fathers said was the most important, and it's what makes America great. And if we don't follow that, it's going to disintegrate in a heartbeat.
Two more questions that go with that question, so we'll pass it back to Mike when you're done. First, do you believe that the Constitution was founded on Judeo-Christian values?
Absolutely. Let me just read something, because this came from a document that I penned for the Sheriff's Association. I think it was last year in 2021, and then I also did it for myself. And this is coming from Benjamin Franklin, because I went back with some challenges that people brought back on our Facebook page that was attacking the Second Amendment statement, because I used the words, help me, can you help me? Why? It was, had to do with our forefathers, but Benjamin Franklin said, only a virtuous people are capable of freedom. As nations become corrupt and vicious, they have more need of masters. Our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government for any other. John Adams. I'm telling you, people, whether you believe it or not, and we're not telling you what faith to have, but I believe it was founded on Judeo-Christian, and that's what my foundation is.
So did 50 of 56 designers.
We're going to be stride for stride in that one. We are based on Judeo-Christian beliefs. That is seen in our forefathers. I just finished reading a book about the battles that they went through as we went through the Revolutionary War, and how in the beginning, when we were absolutely getting it handed to us, the British had outnumbered us, they had better equipment, we were eating the old leather off of our boots. It was prayer that pushed them through that, saw them through those tough times, and continued to keep them focused on the goal at hand, which was this country was set aside for a distinct purpose, for a religious Christian people to take hold here, and I believe that's still here. I mean, we see that it's not as polished as it was, but that's why we need to keep fighting for it and making sure that that message is loud and clear. In God we trust. So the United States is the best country in the world, and we're going to continue to fight for it, just like our forefathers did. So, yes.
Thank you. I wasn't kidding. 50 of the 56 signers also say that. What are the issues within the department that you believe need to be addressed, changed, and or continued?
Division. We've seen it in a 2018 survey, a 2020 survey. I hear it as the union president. We've heard it during lawsuits. We've heard it during arbitration. We've heard it during representation in front of the Public Employees Relations Committee. We have division. We have hostilities, harassment, and that's not acceptable. We're supposed to be the pillars of our community. If we can't get along with one another and we can't pull in the same direction, how can the community trust us? They can't. We're infighting. We're already shorthanded. There's times where I can be the only deputy out west. I need to make sure that whoever I'm working with, that we're going to be able to get along with each other and put the primary goal, which is serving the community, as the number one priority when we're out there working. If we continue to infight, it's going to continue to eat us apart. That's why we've had some issues with recruiting. We have officers around the area that do want to come to our agency, but have heard of our reputation. I've also heard it when I've been at the gym with East Wenatchee, Wenatchee PD, Douglas County deputies asking, well, we don't really want to call upon you guys to come back us up because we're not part of the bro squad. And you guys always look at us like you have a superiority complex. That's horrible. We only have one other agency here in the county that we have to rely on. Besides Washington State Patrol and Fish and Wildlife, but primarily we're looking at Wenatchee PD. We have to get along with each other. We have to start treating each other with respect. And I get it. We do have a lot of talented individuals within Chelan County, specifically our instructors. I'll give them 100% credit on that. But we cannot come in thinking that we are God's gift to law enforcement and that everyone else is an idiot. That reputation is preceding us. So don't believe me? Go ask officers. So I've talked to them. We have a great agency. We just need to get back to acting like adults. Thanks.
90 seconds, like I have a clock in my pocket. Well, I'll tell you what, there's several officers sitting back here, and if you want to get a chance to ask them about division and what it really looks like, make your way to them at the end of if they'll stick around and answer those. There's always been division within the sheriff's office and the political side of that. What I am going to tell you is we have an amazing amount of people that are leading our agency, and it's getting better. We've recruited people from all over the state, King County. We're looking at people from the Seattle port right now, Duval, tribal places. But let me tell you what it is. It is. What we need to do right now is we need to better sell and explain our mission and our vision. And if anything that has been hard to do, and that I always see that I feel like I need to do better, is messaging. And that's messaging to the people in our community, and it's messaging to the people that we work with. It's messaging to interdepartments within the agencies and the agencies that we work with, and getting people on board. And we're going to continue that fight. But we've done a really, really good job because we've grown the task force and we've created new partnerships with interlocal agreements. We've created a National Association Tactical Officer Standard team between the Chelan County Regional SWAT team and the Douglas County and those teams, and we're doing things better and stronger with the behavioral health unit and different things like that. But we have to message better, and that's one of the things that's on the forefront, and bringing everybody together. And I'll admit that first thing is that's something we need to do better, and we're always striving to do that.
Okay, this is the final question from the Republican Women's Group, and then we have a long list of questions. This is WTPU. This was not a Republican. This was People Group. Then we will move on to questions from the public, which they have sent in. So, Sheriff Burnett, if mandates of any sort are placed upon the citizens of Washington State again, will you stand up against the mandates for the rights of the citizens within the county, and how?
So you're talking about any mandates?
Yeah.
Okay. We're going to look at mandates that go against the Constitution and or state laws and different ordinances that would fit that, and absolutely going to stand up. I think I've already proven that we have. I make that commitment to you, or I'll just remove myself from office, because I just can't look myself in the mirror. I can't look my wife in the face, my children, and all of you that are out here, whether you're a supporter for myself or Mr. Morrison. That's what we do, and I think it's time to stand up, because if not, I can tell you from my leadership positions and the things that I've done within these groups and stuff on the leadership side, especially as the office of sheriff, the state is coming down hard, and they want to take away all local authority, and they're going to start with the sheriff as they start peeling away King County and the different things that they've done through the Criminal Justice Training Commission and removing the sheriffs to have the authority on that board. And they're coming, and they're coming, and they're coming, and so we're going to have to stand our ground. We can't do it alone. We need the people to stand up and be a force and to join and support to make our voices heard.
We are not going to allow our agency to be weaponized against citizens who are obeying the law. That's not what we're here for. We're here to protect, we're here to serve. We're not going to go out and serve on political agendas and push those agendas. It's a pretty simple answer. So we enforce laws, we go after criminals. Majority of the people within Chelan County do not meet that mold, are not going to be our target. And if the state really feels motivated to do it, they can go use their state branches that have their own investigative units to go do those, and they can present them in front of the case. But we're not going to go through and put handcuffs just like we did during the pandemic. We were not out there arresting people for not wearing masks, and we were not out there arresting people for not abiding by the rules that are put forth by the governor. So it's going to continue on with that. If the state wants to do it, they can use their own investigative units. The sheriff's office is not going to be weaponized and become a private military.
Okay, the first public question is for Sheriff Burnett. Again, this is not from WTPU. These are questions that were sent in from the public. Sheriff Burnett, in 2018, you said that the opioid crisis was the biggest crisis facing this country. What are you doing to prepare your staff to combat this?
Well, one of the main things we're doing is we're working with our local drug task force, and we're adding members to that. We've actually increased our team in the past, and I don't have enough time to explain this, but we have more staff, we have more resources, and we're going directly after that because we have a very good aggressive team with our leadership inside, and also the commanding portion of this from our chief of special operations as a commander. And then we're going after and lobbying for more funding in the future. I just had a meeting with Senator Patty Murray's staff that we organized with myself, the Chief Crown, who's the current president for the Washington Association of Sheriffs and Police Chiefs, and we brought in some subject matter experts from around the whole United States to brief them on, from the border tour that I did in April of 2021, what we forecasted what was going to be happening. And then we're educating our staff as well to do that, to go out and enforce that. The problem is with the fentanyl that's going to be coming in, it's continually getting more dangerous in the form that's going to be coming. And it's going to be more difficult for our staff to deal with that, and we want them to be able to protect themselves at the same time, be able to go out and enforce the laws, which are really tough because we know that the legislation is stripping back what we call dangerous drug enforcement. But we're trying to put those key things back in place where we're supporting initiatives that are coming our way, and we're going to be out there and lobbying and trying to get some bills to change the police reform, but at the same time find out different ways to go out and get support in the community. So by basically having a compassionate role, can we get people into programs for sobriety the best we can? At the same time, we need to hold them accountable because we know that from drug addiction comes property crimes and a lot of serious things that go along the way.
Deputy Morrison, do you feel like you are prepared by your training with the Sheriff's Office to effectively combat this opioid crisis?
Yes. So clearly we have to recognize that Washington State has put another hurdle in front of us and said the drugs are technically not illegal unless we get them on their third strike. So we have to be resourceful. Once again, we have a law that's changed, and now it's asking us to do things differently than we've done in the past. We've used the same approach since the late 1960s for drugs arrests, and hope that we can overcome it has been a failure. So we need to come up with something different. We used to do the same with mental health crises. Now we have a behavioral health unit, so why are we not looking at a drug unit as well to come out and offer more resources to those who are addicted? I have 3 relatives that were highly addicted to meth. One lost their kids, the other one lost their job, and the other one wouldn't come to any kind of family gatherings for 10 years because they had an extraditable warrant. So all of them are doing well. The one with the extraditable warrant now is a graphic arts designer and does yacht sales. The one that lost her job is now has her kids back and is helping them be successful in life. And the last one, who actually broke into my grandmother's house and stole my grandfather's war medals, is now finishing up her PhD in drug and alcohol counseling. We have to get resources out to these people. Handcuffs did not help them recover and overcome addiction. It came out with other solutions and other resources being offered to them. When I was in Okanagan County, we had a drug court. It was successful, and we provided other options besides, we're going to arrest you, send you to jail, and that's going to fix you. It didn't. It hasn't. It won't. So we need to become more creative and figure out different solutions of dealing with this. Because the drug problem's not going to go away. As soon as we knock fentanyl down, something else will come up, because this is a $1 billion a year industry, probably in the trillions now. So we're going to have to come up with something that's going to be a little bit more creative, because we're not going to overcome addiction by slapping handcuffs onto people and telling them time to go bye-bye. I agree. It is a major issue. We have to address it. We can't ignore it. But the old methods are not working, have not worked, and will not work.
Question is for Sheriff Burnett. It's been brought to the community's attention that under your leadership, you reduced the number of Chelan County Sheriff's deputies on the Regional Drug Task Force. Is this true? If so, can you explain?
Absolutely. Over the course of, how much time do I have on this one? 90 seconds. Over the course of time from 2004, the Chelan County Sheriff's Office has been the lead agency. There's been agencies coming and going from different funding sources. And we were able to bring 2 of those agencies back as my time as sheriff, working with the chief of police from Wenatchee. And at that same time, we had multiple detectives along with our sergeant as the lead agency. And in order to do proper undercover investigations and proper oversight, you have to have a team of a minimum of 5. And in order to do that, when those 2 agencies left, we had Sheriff Heron put in an extra detective. So we actually had a sergeant and 2 detectives. Over the time, as we brought those agencies back, we started removing those down. We also now have partners with DOC, HSI. But the main thing was we brought in sergeant and the PROACT team from Wenatchee PD. And we brought in their 3 staff, and we were able to remove our sergeant and save the taxpayers $150,000. So now we have that team of 6 local law enforcement agencies, state DOC, HSI, which makes a team of 8. We're doing more with more resources, and we're saving taxpayers money for the Chelan County Sheriff's Office. So yes, I have removed them, but with a plan to do it right.
Deputy Morrison, do you agree with the way the reduction in staff was handled and the transfer of resources?
I don't believe we should have pulled all of our resources before we had an adequate replacement, especially with the amount of contributions other agencies in our region, East Wenatchee, Douglas County, Wenatchee and ourselves. I think we should be carrying just as much of a load. And if we're not going to take that approach, then we need to figure out, why are we invested in it? If we're not going to give 100%, I wouldn't continue on the path we're going. So I would look at better utilizing the resources that were there to address the issue at hand.
Here comes the big one. There's been a conversation about red flag orders that violate our due process and Second Amendment rights. People are hearing that they are currently happening in our country. Officers are now being told that if they don't serve them, they could be held criminally liable. Is this true, and what is your view on this?
I'm disgusted by it. I've received that email, and I think it's absolutely ridiculous that we have not talked with the judges and or a prosecutor to see why we are accepting statements from people whose credibility is questionable. We as law enforcement officers are required to put our informants through what they call Aguilar Spinelli. I might have mispronounced my case law. I'll try to brush up on that. That we have to show that they're credible. They meet certain prongs in order to show, Your Honor, I know this individual. We've had this kind of history with them, and that's why I'm relying on their information for you to give me permission to go in that house and take what I want to take. We are not doing that with citizens, several of which are very non-credible, and then we're taking their statements and we're going into people's houses and being asked to take their guns. That does not seem right. It seems like we are going after citizens who have not committed any crimes. I had some questions, but then when it was brought up, they said, you will make an effort. If you don't, you're going to be held criminally liable. So I would rather not sign my house over to the state of Washington and ruin my kids' financial future. But this has been brought up, as I understand, in our supervisor meeting, that this was also a concern of our supervisors. I'm not hearing any solutions back. I mean, I'm not asking you to, kick the governor or wave your finger at the legislators, but we should be having conversations and say, this isn't right. I was like, we are going against people who have committed no crimes. You are weaponizing us again. Why?
So I'm gonna partly agree with Mr. Morrison, and I'm also gonna challenge him on a couple things to say that that's not accurate, and I'll tell you this. And I have been talking with our prosecutor quite a bit on this. Some of these orders that are coming down through our civil department are orders signed by the judge, and they say, and they'll have a box somewhere checked on there that you must surrender such and such firearms to the local county sheriff's office or your local agency. In no such way or form do we ever go inside of a house and take those. And we've been very clear. There's emails out there that can show that the chief of patrol actually sent it out to staff. I think it was last year, I can find the date, that said we will be honoring those if they come in and they surrender them to the sheriff's office. We'll put them into safekeeping. We will not be going into someone's house. The only situation we're going to go in and take somebody's firearms if they have a probable cause search warrant that's going to lead to evidentiary evidence for that case, that we would be going in and taking those firearms from a shooting, drive-by shooting, and different things like that. But I'm going to put the challenge back on saying we're not ordering our deputies to go in. The only time in case that we've done this is the fact that we said that we'll take them in safekeeping, but the people have to come and purposely surrender them to us, and we'll put them into safekeeping, and that's the only thing we do. We're not going to go out and enforce it. We're not going to go enforce it if they don't bring them in, and that's the things that we've been talking with the prosecutor, and that's what Mr. Morrison doesn't know. He doesn't know what I've been doing as a sheriff, because I'm not going to have a conversation with our staff on every little thing every day that we do, but we do give those initial orders, and some of that stuff we actually provide. They want them to give the information back to us as administration, to make sure that we have that information to be able to push that back up and keep that line of communication open with our prosecutor's office and the judges.
How would you respond to an anonymous tip that someone has a gun in their home and the person calling would like it removed?
We're going to verify our source. Yeah, we're not going to just take anonymous calls. We definitely question when we get anonymous calls coming out generating an incident for us. Your house is your castle. We should not be entering or even requesting you to do things within it unless you've committed a crime.
How would you respond to an anonymous tip that someone has a gun in their home and the person calling would like it removed?
So is this live time, or is this like, I don't have enough information to really know how to respond, I guess, in some ways. If this was a 911 tip that's coming in, it's an anonymous call, obviously we're going to follow up, and the officer, the deputy's responder, you're going to have to either have exigent circumstances that's going to allow them to go in and enter that home under the Good Samaritan safekeeping type of thing, where you're going to say, I have probable cause to go in and make sure that somebody's there or there's been a crime committed. But all of those things are going to have to be in place for us to do that. If this is something that's a cold tip or going on, we want our deputies to be able to go in and investigate, because it is important. If it could be real, we want to make sure that we're maintaining safety and public safety and stuff like that. But there's going to have to be a crime committed. And we have a lot of things that we're dealing with, suicides and mental health and people that are self-harming. It doesn't matter, because that's not a crime in the state of Washington. So we're still going to have to establish probable cause to be able to go in and go into a home like that.
Can you recite the Second Amendment verbatim?
I could if I opened my book up. It is important, and I don't know if I can get it verbatim, but I'll give it a try. It talks about, I'm going to go to the last part because I'll come back because I can't even think of how the first part starts. It's the rights of the people to keep and bear arms without infringement. In other words, somebody could come in and take those away, okay? I can't remember the exact wording in the front, but it talks about the importance of the state and the security of that state. And I know I'm really close. But you guys put the pressure on me, man. How did I do that one? But it is about the security of the state, and I talked about the militia, a well-developed or a well-led militia, and at the importance or the benefit of the security of the state. I'm really close. I know I'm really close.
I couldn't reverse it either, so we go out there. I won't insult our founding fathers, but I appreciate to put it in there.
You don't even want to try?
I'm cheering him on. I'll take his book.
Okay.
Yeah. I know it's a well-armed militia. So, you want to read it? A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. I get absolutely no credit for that.
Okay. Deputy Morrison, you are currently the union president. What is the purpose of the union?
To protect employee rights, ensure that they have wages, benefits, and working conditions that are reasonable and acceptable, and to represent them when they need representing if their rights are infringed upon. So, unfortunately, we cannot strike as law enforcement officers. So we have collective bargaining, which allows us to continue to do our job. But when we do have an issue, we go through our steps. We have step 1, step 2, and step 3. And if we can't come together during those terms, our step 3 is the one that ultimately makes the decision whether we go in front of an arbitrator or we go in front of a PERC exam. Okay.
When did the deputies decide to join the union?
From what I understand, going through the history of the union, it was established in 1974 by Jerry Yannicka, one of our deputies. So it's in our logo. So we came up with it, and just at least so we can match up with King County and some of the other agencies that have their nice little logos as well, and we didn't look as unorganized when we were writing back and forth with one another.
More specifically, when did Chelan County decide to join the union?
Chelan County.
Yeah, do you know which union you guys did specifically?
Our agency unionized in 1974.
Oh, it was.
Yep, that's when they started. That's when the association was brought up as I went through the archives and talked to those that were our founding fathers.
Okay. Is it true that lack of confidence in the association leadership and poor representation was a factor for them to join back in '74?
I did not hear their reasoning, but I know that in talking with other agencies that they wanted to have a unified front. This is kind of the background of unions, is that instead of one individual stepping up and taking on a bigger challenge, you were stronger together as a union representing the group as a whole instead of just one voice.
And lastly, the relationship between the union and administration has been rumored to be contentious. Has there ever been a union association that has not filed a grievance with the administration?
As I understand it, every single president that has been in place during this current administration has filed some kind of grievance.
Sheriff Burnett, do you have anything to add?
Absolutely. Working with, as 12 years with the sheriff's office, as the sheriff with the union, we've seen different board members. So there's board members that represent, they get voted in to represent their members. And we've had good relationships, and we've had medium relationships, and I'd say we'd have contentious relationships, and I would say it's probably at the worst it's been. And I truly believe that's because the lack of communication, and we try to open up that. We started labor management meetings at our request on several boards back to open up the conversation so we can bring things to the table on a monthly basis if we had agenda items that need to talk to get the small things out of the way, and then if the things filtered out we couldn't, then we, like Mr. Morrison said, then there's another process for that to move on. I think what you need to know is that obviously I think the group has voted to move on to Teamsters rather than the private organization as a labor attorney that represents them now. And what we'd like to see is we'd like to bring those relationships back And there's a common denominator sometimes, and is if people are submitting information and there's not sharing that information and keeping all the board members together, there gets fractured, and it's hard for us to communicate as the sheriff's command staff and administrative staff to balance that communication on the things that need to go between policy and operations and the sheriff's office and the county commissioner's office as well.
Deputy Morrison, can you recall a situation where it was reported that you intimidated, bullied, or otherwise made persons feel uncomfortable in the workplace? Let's make sure we keep our hackles down, people.
No, but I heard it and I was kind of curious. I'm not usually the imposing knuckle dragger kind of deputy, so I definitely will fight vigorously for our employees' rights. There's no question whatsoever about that. I've done it during my 10 years of being a union rep. Just to clarify, so I was in the union for 8 years at Omak Police Department. We had 0 grievances. We never went to arbitration. We never went in front of PERC. So at times you find personalities where we can't communicate, and others you can. And you got to use those other avenues to try to address issues. And Teamsters has been a good choice because it's going to offer retirement medical. So who wouldn't sign up for that? Hopefully they represent us just as well. I will not be signing away my FOP legal quite yet.
Do you mind answering a couple more questions for clarification on rumors?
Sure.
Okay. It has been rumored that members of the Deputies Association have lost confidence because you allegedly removed people from important emails because they did not agree with your opinion. Is this true?
Typically, I don't send out as many emails. We have a secretary for that. I have not been voted out. They can always go and do a vote of no confidence, just like any other elected position. I have not seen that proposal come forward, so I'd have to debunk that. They certainly have the authority, the ability, and the capability. And I would definitely hand over the responsibilities to someone else if they want to take on the extra work. It's not a very well-paid position, but I do understand it's important. And there are members that we've represented who have been very thankful for that representation, and we've been successful in representing them.
Thank you. Sheriff Burnett? Now you're back in the hot seat. Same question to you. Can you recall a situation where it has been reported that you had intimidated, bullied, or otherwise made persons feel uncomfortable in the workplace?
As me directly or staff?
You.
Yeah, I've been accused of a lot of different things over the course of time, and we've had HR complaints filed upon myself and multiple other members of our command staff and our supervisors as well. And that came after, I'm going to talk direct, that came directly after an employee was pointed out from the IT director that they were building their personal webpage for their personal business while on county time at a county computer. That was given to a supervisor to take forward. He was coach and counseled. That was it, documented. And within 2 weeks, there was an HR complaint that was filed on myself and other staff with 11 allegations. County hired an outside attorney from the Seattle area, from an attorney firm, and they did a lengthy investigation and interviewed multiple people. Went from 11 allegations to 17, and at the end of the investigation, myself and my staff and everybody in the sheriff's office was exonerated from all 17 allegations.
Thank you. It has been noted that the agency was placed on probation in November of 2021. The Sheriff's Department specifically related to, oh wait, no, I lost my place, I apologize. Since November of 2021 with the Washington State Parks Department regarding its partnership with the agency. Why is the agency on probation?
The agency isn't currently on probation. We were for a short time. A couple different things happened. We have 2 people that are assigned to Marine Patrol. One is what we call our lead Marine Patrol, generally from April or May to October. And then one of our school resource officers comes in and fills in the rest of that for those 2.5 months, and they work together, and then overtime shifts fill the rest of that. Our main patrol, Marine Patrol position was called up for active reserve military duty. Okay, and then one other thing happened. We were going to a new platform, so in the past, the inspections that you do for boat inspections, safety inspections, those all get documented in, and that's part of the way that you receive your funding. They used to be on a printed multi-copy piece that would get turned into the state. Okay, we were going to a model that Grant County was using, and they were using tablets and through a sector program. Those didn't, the software, we had problems with the software. I think that, if I remember right, I think some of the, you could actually ask Kim back there because she managed this, and if I don't get this all right, you can go talk to her back there as our chief civil deputy. But the software problem was a problem, and they did get intersected into the state, so we got credit for those. They came back to us, advised of that, and I think at first the command staff wasn't even aware of it, but they went back and they put a plan in place. They rectified that, put us right back on, so we didn't lose any funding. We just had to get the ball up and rolling, and we're still on track to try to get that because we ordered new software and computers, and that stuff has been backlogged as far as it was the chain of supply chain.
Do we get a clap?
Huh? Yeah, you can clap. Okay, Sheriff, can you explain the firings and court findings of Officer Tyler's lawsuits?
I can talk to some of that's been settled, and some of it I won't be, because if there's current open litigation, I don't have the authority to talk about that, and I don't think the county attorneys would be very happy. But here's what happened. In the fall of 2010, about 2 weeks before I was elected as the Chelan County Sheriff, the previous Sheriff, Mike Harum, terminated Jennifer Tyler, and there was a long process that Mr. Morrison was talking about as step 1 and step 2, went to arbitration. And there were findings that she was found to be sustained of, and I'm not, don't quote me on it, there was several numbers. A couple of those were truthfulness violations, and they were sustained. They went through the arbitration process, and the arbitrator sustained those findings, but he gave the ruling of 5 days without pay, not progressive discipline, rather than termination. Okay, so 30 months later, under my command, we had to reinstate her. And I went back to the chiefs and sheriffs around the state, and I said, hey, what do you do with an employee that's been out of work? Because normally you lose your certification in 24 months if you haven't been working. So they said, just do whatever your main training program is. Don't vary from that. Don't change it. Do your full training program. We had went back from a 4 to 6 week training process for lateral hires, which she was originally from Oklahoma. And we had gone that program and said, everybody does the San Jose model to 12 weeks. And we implemented that, and she had to be retrained, both for her safety, for our other deputy safety, and for the community safety, and for the county liability. So other than that, and then, so that was all, I guess, inherited that we dealt with. And then moving forward from there, she was terminated a second time under my command, and that's the part that I can't talk about because it's under current litigation.
Thank you. Deputy Morrison, this is for you. We've heard a lot about the issues within the department and your plans to plan to fix those issues. However, we've not heard much about your plans to address the issues facing the public. How would you address them as a sheriff?
Get the focus back to patrol and not personal agendas or politics. I mean, at times we are at limited staffing because we've become so uber focused on training, which is great. I'm a trainer. I've said it before, I trained at the academy, I've trained locally. I think training's great, but if it gets to a point where you're starting to short staff your patrol squad, I mean, you've taken away from the backbone of a law enforcement agency. You see agencies across the U.S. that are dealing with staffing crises. All other auxiliary functions are being eliminated to get back to patrol. That's what I would go for. Number one, make sure we're fully staffed, and we can start expanding out from there and ensure that we are doing what we're supposed to be doing, which is enforcing the law. Okay.
Okay. Okay, on to public funding. Should public funding be transparent with the taxpayers?
Absolutely. Oh, that came through good. I agree with Sean Smith's comment. When I see my property taxes going up every single year, I definitely want to know where the money's going, what you're doing with it. I am a Republican, but I guess you'd call me more of a Reagan-era Republican, that I'm conservative. I like to be financially responsible, and I like small government. I don't want government telling me what to do every step of the way, and then watching them misspending my money on stupid things.
Is there ever a time when commingling of personal funds and the department funds are ever appropriate?
No.
Okay, one more, there's another rumor here.
Okay.
Deputy Morrison, have you ever raised funds on behalf of the department via GoFundMe?
Yes, that was one of the tools we utilized to help fund the EVOC program. So we had asked for several years with the previous EVOC coordinator if we could get funding to get trailers, cones, other equipment, instead of paying Grant County and the city of Ephrata to use their facilities. We were denied each year, so I said, do I have permission to go out and do fundraising to try to get funds together so we can pay for our own equipment, with the hope that we could also utilize our trailer to bill out to other agencies and turn it into a profitable training program instead of one that is being borrowed from other agencies.
Thank you. Were those funds deposited into a personal account before being passed along to the department?
No.
Perfect, thank you. Sheriff Burnett? Same question, should public funding be transparent with the taxpayers?
Oh, absolutely.
Easy, right? Okay.
Did the audience know about public disclosure and the way that the state legislation is killing our local agencies?
And then the same question, is there ever a time when commingling of personal funds in the department fund is ever appropriate?
Say that again.
Is there ever a time when commingling of personal funds and the department funds is ever appropriate?
I do not believe so.
Thank you. Sheriff Burnett, did this create an auditing issue with the GoFundMe for the Sheriff's Department, and can you explain the specific impact it may have had on the department?
Yes. We end up getting reporting back, and from my recollection, again, my chief civil deputy is back here, and she could have a side conversation with you if you want to know the exact details on what happened, because that's a clear and transparent process. But there was checks that were wrote, and then either wrote to Mr. Morrison or to the sheriff's office that were cashed. I don't know if that money was put into an account, but it was cashed and held. And when that money was brought in, it was brought in as one check from him personally. And then my chief civil deputy said, hey, we have to track this. We have to know where the different funds came from. And so we need to have reconciliation of that. And then when he came back, it didn't reconcile. I think it actually reconciled the opposite way. There was more money than what he could show. We had to self-report that to the state auditor's office. We got audited, and there were some findings there as well. So.
Okay. Would you guys allow a GoFundMe again in the future, given the complications that it sounds like it may have had?
Well, I know GoFundMe, and I don't know, again, I would say no. And I think I would say it would be better off to go through an account, and those checks should be wrote, and they would get deposited to the sheriff's office or Chelan County, go into a specific donation fund that we have. We have several donation funds within our budget.
Thank you. Deputy Morrison, would you?
Absolutely, I would not go with the GoFundMe account in the future. I had communications with Chief Johnson, who's now Chief of East Wenatchee PD, when I came into this and said, hey, this is what I want to do. We misunderstood each other. I take responsibility, no excuses. And I can say I personally put $1,000 of my own money in there to donate, because I believe in the EVOC program. Vehicle accidents kill more officers a year than gunfire, and it was important to me. And so I jumped in, and since that time, we've also done fundraising for the program. It's been successful, learned from my mistakes, and will always be accountable for what I do. And if I fall, I'll pick myself back up, say I'm not a perfect person, but my integrity is still in check. So I came out $200 over what I thought I raised, so I call that a success, although egg on my face, I'll take it.
Thank you. How would you manage if there were an event or emergency to the degree that the state or federal agencies were brought in an outside emergency management division, such as the UN or another power, to position armed personnel in Chelan County? Go ahead, Simone.
We better be like a zombie apocalypse if that happens. No, the sheriff is in charge of the county. They're going to work with us. We've done it before up in Okanagan County when I was a deputy up there too, because half of our city was in the Culva Indian Reservation. They weren't allowed to investigate their own felony crimes, so the FBI would come in. We'd work with the FBI, but the FBI was very open to communicating with us directly, having us assist, and knowing that these were our goals, what we were looking to accomplish for our community. Those open lines of communication have to remain in place. I definitely know that we take a lot of federal funding, we utilize a lot of federal equipment, and that we want to maintain a good relationship, but that does not mean I want them to come in once again and tell me how to live my life. This is what I talked about, small government, don't overreach, but definitely step in and help us out if we're having a natural disaster.
How would you react if they expected you and your deputies to be subservient to them? Would you
I
comply?
didn't get that last part.
How would you react if they expected you and your deputies to be subservient? Would you comply?
No. No, and if they want to take our funding away, I mean, I definitely want to consult with the citizens I represent, because maybe they might have a different idea and I don't represent myself and my personal agendas. I want to make sure that I'm representing the people of Chelan County and know that, hey, if I tell these guys to go take a walk, we could have a lot less resources than what you may be accustomed to. So if you're okay with that, I'm going to take a stand and I'm going to tell them to go ahead and exit out. We'll do our best. We have a great emergency management department and we'll do everything we can to take on the problem. But I'm certainly hoping that they'll leave all their nice equipment for us.
So what I'm understanding is you would be willing to sacrifice federal funding to stand up for constitutional rights?
As long as I have the backing of the citizens that I represent to say, is this your will? I am serving you as well, and if I'm out and you don't want to do that, then we're going to have a problem. But if I have to take a stand against the government, I have no problem doing that.
And lastly with that, what would you require of your deputies in this situation?
To continue to act professional, follow orders, and do what's best for the agency and the community.
Thank you.
And I should say follow orders from our first line supervisors and personnel.
Same question, Sheriff.
These are your questions, aren't they?
No.
I'm just kidding.
There's only a couple more left. Do you want me to read it again?
I can't remember half of those.
Oh, that's okay. How would you manage if there were an event or emergency to the degree that the state and or federal agencies brought in an outside emergency management division, such as the UN or another power, to position armed personnel in Chelan County?
Well, they can't be doing that without our permission. We have to grant them the authority. We're going to say no on that. And we utilize the Washington State Emergency Management System already. If anything major was to happen here, the Washington State National Guard should be the ones that's going to come in through the emergency management system. And they're going to be communicating that. One is why they're coming in, what to do. Even for COVID, when they brought them in, that was all communicated through our emergency management division. And so basically, a marching orders has to come and we agree with what they're going to be able to do and set up if they're working directly for. Okay, so we are not subservient to them. Okay, any federal agency, and you said NATO, so that just kind of blows my mind that would even, because that would be really concerning to say, no, you have no part here for that. But they're here to assist. We work with the marshals, the U.S. Marshals. We work with FBI, and we get cases through the Columbia River Drug Task Force that go to a federal statute, and they'll take those cases on and work with us because one, if they can get prosecution, they're going to take that out and it's going to go to the federal side. It's not going to be held upon the state for paying that bill and when they're getting housed in their sentencing. But they also have better sentencing. They don't have this good time on the federal time. And it's just a lot better system than we have. But they're going to use to assist us at our request and not the other way around.
And what would you require of your deputies in this instance?
Well, the deputies are going to be following direct orders. We'd be in direct communications. They need to follow the chain of command of what we're going on. And I don't know if the Constitution question, is the Constitution question coming later, or is that?
Right after.
Okay, I'll wait to answer that. They need to be following direct orders from the sheriff and my command staff.
And lastly, attached to this, would you be willing to sacrifice federal funding to stand up for constitutional rights?
Absolutely. I wish we'd start be doing more of this anyway. We shouldn't even the question shouldn't be asked readily if the funding would have anything to do with our constitutional rights. Okay, that's number one priority. We protect the constitutional rights. And if that's going to be a problem with the funding, then it's gone. But the problem is with I believe that the federal government, the state government wants us to become what? Okay, dependent upon them. Okay, and we have in some ways. And there's some really good stuff that has come from it, but at the same time, we can't use our own local tax revenue dollars. Okay, our commissioner candidates talked about that and the challenge of it and how we do that moving forward to even try to keep our staffing up and do the basic functions of a county government for infrastructure and public safety. It should be the #1 cases, but they continue to add on all these unfunded mandates, and then they come and they dingle the carrot in front of you and say, but oh, we have all this federal funding, so that's not. We really need to be careful with that, and that needs to go to the legislative branch, which is our commissioners.
Okay, final question for the evening. Regarding who wins, how will the election affect your working relationship? Deputy Morrison, what positive changes could come from a Burnett win?
Well, I'd have to believe that both of us have it deep down in our hearts to represent the community to the best of our abilities. So I would imagine that he would make every effort to continue on and hopefully bring us together so we're a stronger force.
Sheriff Burnett, what positive changes could come from a Morrison win?
Well, you're going to have to talk about him. Again, I'm going to go to the leadership aspect of this and the command staff and the appointed positions that I've surrounded myself with that are truly the people that are running the agency and have helped me build those relationships around. I would suspect that those 5 positions are going to be changed overnight, and so you're going to have a big learning curve. And I'm going to say big learning curve. It's going to be there because I had it, I experienced it, and I know what it's like. And it's going to be challenging, but I would say that the transition would be professional and respectful, but I think there would be some concerns, even if my command staff would be willing to work alongside Mr. Morris, the sheriff, and I'm not sure that would be the best thing for their command staff as well. But I think there's going to be some severe challenges because of the lack of relationships that he has already and has damaged during his time as president of the Deputy Sheriff's Association. And don't take my word for it, go and have private conversations with the commissioners, with the county administrator and people like that have had a difficult time, and it's just the facts.
Thank you both gentlemen for coming up here and sharing your time with us this evening.
Can I add to that? I would probably be not working here. I would find something else to do.
Okay, we're going to open it up for 10 minutes for questions from the audience for the sheriff candidate. I'm going to remind everybody, especially given past incidences, we are going to keep our hackles down. Every question is to be respectful and no intimidating.